Now, it is episode 13 of the Monaghan Way in association with Northern Sound, and of course, myself here, Sean McCaffrey, with you once again. You'll see also that Fergal Monaghan has joined us. The first opening weekend of the Monaghan Club Championship is complete, and of course, we're going to be looking back on that and looking forward to round two, which is coming our way this weekend. Again, just to thank you for all your I suppose, listening and viewing of our previous 12 Monaghan Way episodes that we have for you there. Always much appreciated. Your interaction on them as well. We're delighted to see that. People pass and comment. And that's what it's all about. You also getting involved with us here. And Fergal, I know you know people are getting involved with the podcast over the course of the weekend. You're out and about taking in all our senior action for us. And of course, people that have been listening in here, maybe we'll chat a little later on about it, take an issue with you indeed, and some of your thoughts of what we had. But your thoughts, opener weekend, how did it go for you? I know you were busy.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, Sean. I was looking forward to it. I mean, when you preview these games, first of all, people, you're kind of shooting in the dark a little bit because you don't know what to expect with championship, with new players coming back and players missing or whatever, first round championship. I was surprised at the gap of victories in all four games, particularly the Latin and Mullen game and the Carduff Clontarf game. I was very, very surprised with how the deficit. But then I was thinking afterwards that, you'd be driving around and you'd be thinking about the games. Possibly it's the new rules, the 2-pointers and things like that. Teams, there wasn't a crazy amount of 2-pointers, Sean, but the teams that did hit them generally won the game. And, Clontarf and Conor McManus, Darren McDonald hit a few 2-pointers. Latin had a couple of 2-pointers as well. In fairness, Anna Mullen did too, but Latin were just so good on the goals and the goals as well. Look, enjoyed it. I was just surprised about the deficit, and it'll be interesting. I think we needed this week to kind of set the tone, and next week there's a lot more jeopardy at play because teams have lost and need to get back on the horse. Other teams kind of know where to stand, and then of course we have Scottstown and Marcloon entering the race as well, who didn't play this weekend.
Yeah, so there's a lot, as you said, to move about on this weekend. Then there's a break, and then we're obviously into round three. Moving about it, and just briefly to touch on that, I know I'd started the previous episode by saying I was at the launch night, the buzz and the excitement that was there. The past weekend, I managed to take in a junior championship game and a senior championship game. The buzz of moving about, you experienced it. I know the way the timing is, the way the fixtures are set out, it's just brilliant that you're jumping from one ground to the other. You're meeting people that have been at the previous game and then they're running to go and get another game. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was certainly the games that really had the biggest crowds were the evening games, the two evening games on Saturday evening and Sunday evening. I saw you there in Latin on Saturday night, and a massive crowd in Clontarf on Sunday evening. Beautiful evening as well. The rain just started when the game was over. It was. I think there was a lot of neutrals at those two games, and I think there was a lot of neutrals at the Clontarf Carduff game with the Jason McGee factor, and there's all that kind of stuff. And they wanted to see how this would pan out. But I'll tell you, we'll come to all the different games, but look, there was some very impressive performances. For me, the impressive performance was two. Latin were very impressive, I felt, and Clontarf as well. Very, very impressed after it.
But that's maybe where we will just deviate for the minute. And I was going to ask you who impressed you the most of all the teams you've seen over the weekend. But I get the feeling from you, Clontarf surprised many. I'll be honest with you. Everyone envisaged and seeing this maybe as a tight game, and it's nearly done and dusted at half time. No harm to Carduff. I know a number of Carduff people, and I was jesting with them saying, did Carduff not know the game started at 5 because they didn't arrive in until the second half?
Started off real cagey, Sean. 10 minutes we waited for the first score. And the first score, I just go to my notes, it actually came as Michael Connolly from Carduff scored the first point of the game after 10 minutes. It was a real kind of cagey affair. There were kind of two boxers jabbing at each other. Peter Connolly put the ball over the bar, tight angle, 13 metres over towards the clubhouse grounds end. And then from that kick out, Dean McDonald, who was exceptional, put the ball in the back of the net. From the kick out, Killian Lavelle, he was set up by Ryan McGuigan, and I have to give Killian Lavelle a special mention. He was absolutely fully back to full fitness, and he was moving. He was just cruising along the ground. He was everywhere. Played some game. And then Ryan McGuigan, he had a great game. Put the ball in the back. 3 goals in the space of about 90 seconds, I'd say, 2 minutes. And it was stunned, really. And it got better. Like, obviously, Gavin McEnany came back and scored a point for Carduff, but Conor McManus with a 2-pointer then put more misery. And Charlie Moan, it was actually interesting. I was talking to Desi Moan after. Desi, 23 years championship football. This is his 23rd season. And he started in at the full back line, and he was playing with his nephew who made his debut, Charlie. That'd be JP's son, and he scored a point as well. So I actually, there was a criticism leveled at Clontibret, and I mentioned it in my last preview, which I was actually reminded about in Clontibret, that I tipped Carduff, but I wouldn't mind what I'd say. Jesus, I get them all wrong. Look, Clontibret are very good at, they actually have minors come in. Henry Kelly was put on as well, really skillful footballer. So they're smattering in young players in with the experience. And I have to say, there's a freshness about them. Conor McManus looked really fresh. Killian Lavelle, they all look really fresh. And talking to the management of the lads, they're 2 down men, Neil Coulter and I think it's Paul McCartan. They've got a real good pre-season in with them. They've got, they're well prepared. And Carduff, I was expecting, but Carduff they just walked through Carduff. Now, in fairness, Carduff, in the second half, they got the 3 goals back. Jordan McGarrell's goal in particular was a brilliant, brilliant effort. And they had a couple of other goal chances that they put over the bar. Now, in fairness, so did Clontibret, who fisted the ball over the bar a couple of times, kept the scoreboard ticking over. But the damage was done. Francis Hughes marked Jason McGee, and I have to say Francis got the better of him. Darren McDonald's kickouts were exceptional. It just went really well for Clontibret, and they had the clientele to manage the game, manage the scoreboard. Conor Boyle in the back, Brian Green was excellent. Aaron Carey, you could see that experience again from the county. I have to say, Clontibret will play Scottstown next week. And I wonder, does Clontibret, obviously you want to win every game, but Clontibret of all teams, I just got a feeling, they know what they're about this year. And that's going to be some game next week, because we don't know what to expect. And we never underestimate Scottstown. Scottstown know how to win games. But of all teams to play them, I think the team that fears them the least is Clontibret.
Absolutely, and that's what I say when we chat and talk about this. You're giving opinion. You're going on what maybe you'd seen in league form and stuff like that. And no doubt, Clontibret are delighted with themselves, maybe to prove a number of doubters. I'll be honest, you'd have been one thinking myself as well that that's a game for Carduff, and it could be the surprise result maybe of the weekend. When I say surprise, because interestingly, all the teams that were at home actually won, so it shows the advantage of home advantage.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. The home advantage was big, and the other thing about it is winning your first game. It gives you a great platform. It takes the pressure off. Training's going to be great this week. Not that they're going to do a whole pile. They're back out again, but it just makes that training and that vibe around the place a bit better. Like a win, the rising tide lifts all ships, and a win does that. No, but Carduff are not by any way out of it. In fact, going to Carduff, they don't lose too many games in Carduff, and they have True next week, who had a great win against Cromartin. But I'd give a special mention to Cromartin. Of all the games, that game was probably the closest, because True couldn't really shake Cromartin for a long time. They just kept buzzing around with annoyance, and Stephen Mooney really led the charge there. But True will be very happy. Another team who's brought in, I was talking to Marty Woods after the game, who's selector with Paul Rouse, and Dave bringing in minors in as well. And there's a nice vibe coming from True, who sometimes flatter to deceive. We sometimes say they're going to do something, but they were minus Louis Kelly and Gary Mohan. Louis Kelly with a slight hamstring injury. I think it's precaution, because I know they're ready for a real battle next week, and they want all their soldiers ready for that one. But Gary Mohan obviously won't be back, and he won't be back probably in the last game of the group stages, because of the way the championship over there is working out for his team.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as you said, it turned out to be probably the closest of the two games, even though, and again, I was just listening into yourself, and the match reports, I should say, by the way, for all these games are available on the Northern Sound website if you want to check back on them. But I got the feeling True were in control, but as you said, just couldn't shake off Cromarty.
Started brilliantly through with 4 points up, and then the 10th minute, Stephen Mooney got a goal. And the problem that defenders have with Stephen Mooney is that he's left and right footed, and he scored some great points and got scores off both feet. Ronan Boyle marked him, did very well in the second half. Um, a brilliant defender as well. A fella I'd like to see, in the county jersey in the next future, I would think. Obviously a very good minor, but they kept, they were really hard to shake Cromartin. And Cromartin, even at the end when they were beaten, I've seen them in the huddle after. There's a bit of positivity there about that team, and they're a good team in all kind of senses. Now, I would think their management would like to see that probably, if they were doing it, they'd like to see more coming from, or more help for Stephen Mooney, because he is doing the bulk of scoring. I think he might have finished with 2-8 out of 312. So that's a lot. That's a lot of one man to shoulder. So on the other hand, True had, I think, 10 or 11 different scores, which was pretty impressive. So there was a great spread, and Christopher McKenna is a nice man, nice place ball specialist, puts the ball on the ground, can hit 2-pointers. So from that sense, and then they have a big man from Clare. We're talking about Jason McGee from Donegal and Carduff. Darren O'Neill, formerly of Air Oak in Ennis. He's a big man. He's about 6'6", I'd say, and he scored a lovely 2-pointer as well in his championship debut. Got them into a 6-point lead in the second half. You know, I'd have to say True were very impressive, and they never panicked, even though Cromartin kept coming back at them. And in the end, they had enough scorers. Ryan Mohan, Sean O'Connell, all these guys just kept chipping over the points until they or McGilligan as well would freeze. They kept that scoreboard ticking over, and the array of scorers that they had was very impressive. Plus, minus two big names from the county. Like, they'd have to be happy with that, but there will be minus Gary Mohan next week. But that Carduff True game, the fact that Carduff have lost, but they're at home, their backs to the wall. They can't afford to lose another game. And then True are being asked the question, well, you won your first game, but now, let's see what you're made of in championship football. So both sides, the questions are there to be answered, and I can't wait to find out what that answer will be.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you noted about performances. Clontibret were put into top of the class, but I think you touched on it there as well. Latin maybe coming in second place behind them. A very workman team-like performance against Armullen on Saturday evening. Again, a game that we thought was going to be close, and I'm going to touch on it later on, the number of goals that was scored over the weekend. But again, goals were the big ones in this.
Look, I watched Latin play Maracloon in the league semi-final up in Maracloon, and it was really a championship match because both sides were so fair but physical. Like, they were going for everything. And they're playing next week again in Maracloon. And I think that victory for Maracloon in the league semi-final will be a big motivator for Latin, actually. But I think one man who wasn't playing, hasn't been playing much this season, but he was back wearing number 17. He wasn't fooling anyone, was Aaron Mulligan. He was the main man for me in that Latin. He was able to score at the right time. He got 2-4, I think, maybe 2-4, 2-5, I think was, but he was exceptional. And he's a real, I felt that was the missing ingredient for Latin, just that extra bit of quality. And I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, Sean, teams with those X factor forwards that can score those 2-pointers or get those goals, like, it's a massive help, particularly with the new rules, with the extra space that we talk about, with that is a big factor. And that could have been one of the reasons why we had those difference in scores, with Sean Jones, Andrew Woods, Connor Jones, and Inniskeen. You had the array of scores in True, but you had Mulligan, and you had all those guys from Clontibret who can score and take goals. So, those teams with those X factor forwards really did make hay at the weekend. But Mulligan for me. But look, I'll give honourable mentions as well. It was an all-round team performance. Dara Dempsey, Stephen McCabe. I mean, Darren McElroy come in, excellent. The midfield was good. we have to talk to us. You talk about Anna Mullen not being there, but Anna Mullen didn't play to their performance. They were too slow. They got caught with a few hand passes intercepted. You were there, Sean. You saw it, and they'll be very disappointed with that. But the one thing about Anna Mullen, like, I can guarantee you that the type of team they are, the type of men they are, like they'll be back next week. Like they're not gonna lie down. So I still think there's more in Anna Mullen, and Neil Bannigan was well held, by his own high standards, and that was a kind of took their leadership out of it as well, and they just struggled to get the scores they needed. And they finished well, in fairness to them, Kevin Sheridan with a goal and that, but they will have been very disappointed in how they performed, especially in a local derby like that, because they got a good beating. Like they were really out of sight, midway through the second half time. They were 3-8 to 8 up Latinware. So I think Animal will be disappointed. I was a wee bit disappointed. I thought it was going to be a very tight affair, and just Latinwood that little bit speedier, that little bit faster, and certainly that more efficiency in front of goals. Only about 4 wides, whereas Animal had 10 or 11.
Yeah, and that was the big difference. I know it's in the skiing up next for Armullen. To have them at home in a skiing with a relatively comfortable win over Ballybay, and unfortunately, from the Ballybay perspective, it just looks like it's a poor trajectory that they're on at the moment there. I know they've already lost out in the league relegation final and a loss on the opening day. And it must be then backed up, the caveat, they are missing so many first-team players.
Look, we saw Monaghan in 2023 with all the injuries and missing big players. It's a disaster, and that's in a county team. Club team cannot withstand. You lost Drew Wiley. Desi Ward was there. His knee was in a brace. He's out, for the season, obviously. Paul Finley's not there. Shane McGuinness, massive loss. Shane McGuinness, great runner with the ball. And I don't know, I think Christopher might have been slightly injured as well. So, look, you take those lads out of a club team, and it's not easy. In a skiing, on the other hand, you have John McEntee there for maybe it's the third year. Unfinished business. Talk about Tommy Dornan being gone. They dusted themselves down. They got on with that. Kieran McNulty in midfield. Really, really tidy game by Kieran. Look, Ballybay weren't at it, and they weren't to the pitch of the game, but they fought on. Colin Lennon and these guys kept going, and Ryan Wiley tried their hard. They all tried, but they just couldn't get enough ball. And on the other side, Inniskeen were well set up, and Sean Jones, Connor Jones, Andrew Woods, cousins, all related there. I think they accounted for 312 out of that 317 or 320 that they scored. So, I mean, that was pretty good going. The boys were on it right from the throw in. The ball went down, and Inniskeen got a free, and Andrew Woods took it out for a 2-pointer. He was playing. He was on form. They all look good, and Kieran McNulty chipping in with 2 points. Shane Hannity working hard, and then a nice bench as well, which they emptied. So they'll know more about themselves now next week. They're not taking. I know, speaking to the management after, Sean, and just chatting to people, they don't like playing Anna Mullen. They find it very tough against them. So, the teams that lost last there on Saturday and Sunday, I expect a big performance from all those teams, definitely, because they're all proud lads. They're putting massive effort into it. They're not going to go out and do it. And Ballybay, listening to everyone kind of writing them off as well, I hope they can muster something, because they were league champions last year. So that's how it works in football. You just can't take anything for granted. And there will be a team who will surprise us. Okay, we shouldn't be surprised with Clontibret. They were county finalists last year, but there will be a team that will surprise us. But there's a couple of teams there that definitely fancy it and have won in the past. Latin have won championships in the recent past. So have Clontibret. Inniskeen trying to get over that line. I think it was in 1948 their last win. That's a big, and they know they have to do it. It as a group, but it's not easy to do. And then of course, like Jaws looming round the boat, the yellow barrel about to pop up. Well, it's a blue barrel. Scottstown about to come in now, and we know what they're about. Looking forward to seeing Maracloon and Latin next week, though, Sean. I really think that is going to be an absolute humdinger. Two honest teams who have a good way about them. They're playing for each other. They're happy camps. So something's going to have to give there, and that's going to be very, very juicy.
It is indeed, yeah. I think actually I might have dropped that in the last podcast where I said Ballybay were league champions. I think they were league runners
Or
up
league
last year.
runners
They
up.
were,
Yeah,
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 and
yeah.
I did drop that one the last time because Scotstown had done the double, and that was
Okay,
how the
so
seeding then worked when it comes to the draw. In fairness, so it was
yeah.
just, but yeah, they were senior league finalists last year, and I said it's just unfortunate the way they're caught out with those injuries at the moment. I was looking down at the score lines in front of me. You would have all these then as well, Fergal, and I was just adding up, and it's interesting. The football rules committee had come together again to talk about the 4 point goal. They think they need to give more added emphasis to the goal. They need to get more goals into the games. There's 22 goals scored in senior championship football at the weekend in Monaghan. This is the first time we've proper seen the rules at club level. They have been there in the league, but we know at the league level, the officialdom hasn't been there. You know yourself, you
Yeah.
don't have all maybe the umpires, you don't have the lines people, you don't have the fourth official. Obviously, you have the referee that's doing the majority of the work. All championship games at the weekend had your full complement of all officials. So every rule that should be governed, should be watched, was used. It was the proper opportunity to suddenly see the rules at club level. And the key thing that I picked up when I seen it is that it's a forwards game. It's a game of drive at the defender now. That there's very little to be got really from holding the ball or trying to go backwards.
Yeah, well, I think certainly at intercounty level, you could put a goal 4 points, but at club level, I don't think there's any need because of what you said. There was 3 goals. Most teams scored goals of some description. Teams do 6 goals in the Contemporary Carduff game, but there wasn't as many 2 pointers at club level as there is at intercounty level, which just goes to show the standard at intercounty level and the long distance shooting, or maybe that the defences are going behind that 40-meter D. I don't know, but there was certainly less. 2 pointers. You could have some teams didn't score any 2 pointers. A couple here and there. So is there a need to put a 4 point goal when there's not that many 2 pointers? I definitely think at intercounty level, when teams can hit 6, 7, 8 2 pointers, 4 points for a goal might be a thing. But I don't so far, and maybe it's because the weather. But there was wind. There was plenty of wind there at the weekend. Teams had strong winds at their back for either half. So for me, there wasn't that many 2 pointers, but there was, as you say, teams running at it. And I mean, it doesn't matter how well you're set up. It doesn't matter who's over there. There's defensive geniuses. I mean, when in Carduff there, you have Rory Gallagher, who's well known for his defensive acumen, but he couldn't stop Clontarf running off him, and the guy running off the shoulder and doing a quick 1-2 soft hands. Like, can't stop it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's. It can be Jimmy McGuinness, John Madden, or Einstein. He isn't going to stop that, and you can't. And that showed at the weekend.
Yeah, and it shows, yeah, and that was the one thing that I took from the couple of games I seen was the space and the space that was afforded. If, as you said, you went off the shoulder, you went running, you went in support. It was amazing to see the space. And listen, you have to be honest about it as well. The level of defender that you have at club level is nowhere going to be near the level of defender that you have at county level. Obviously, you're picking the best 6 defenders in your county. At club level, you may have 1 or 2 exceptional defenders, and the rest after that, similar maybe to the forwards that are becoming true, they're on an equal par.
Yeah, well, look, you have extra space with the less bodies back there. So forwards, that's designed specifically for good forwards to play, because in the past the corner forward was null and void. So he's back in business. Even at the very beginning of the second half in the Clontarf Carduff game, Conor McManus ran right through the defence and fisted the ball over the bar. The other thing about it is, the problem at club level that and the reason when you get by the first defender, like if you watched Monaghan play Roscommon, say in the league final in Croke Park, better teams are able to maybe half foul, or when you get by the first defender, there's a second defender coming out to meet you. What happens there today at the weekend, when you beat the first defender, if he didn't get a tackle in, or if he didn't kind of slow you down, there was no second defender. For whatever reason, and Clontarf definitely exploited that, and so did Carduff in the second half. They got 3 goals, so it's that little space behind for whatever reason. And maybe you alluded to it there, but you're dealing with, like, at county level and with Donegal, Monaghan, and an All Ireland quarterfinal, you're at the high the air is thin. You're at the very top of the mountain there, and that's just club football is a little bit different, but um, definitely forwards and goals aplenty. And people will say, "Oh, the defense or whatever," but it's very hard. It's nearly impossible to stop someone running and coming off the shoulder end with the extra space. And that was why the new rules were set up. I was actually right beside me where I was commentating in Clontarf. I was in the terrace and the crowd were around me, and Porrick Duffy was standing beside me from Scottstown. Porrick, so he would have known and we were chatting, because we're going in and out, and he was saying on the new rules, and we're just saying how refreshing they are, because even though there is beating, but football is, it's more exciting. Possibly over the weekend, there was some hard hits, but maybe was it a bit sanitized? A couple of the games, there was maybe, was it lacking that real championship fervor, that real kind of, that could possibly because the games were a little bit one-sided at times. And I'm not saying that I wanted a dirty game or nothing like that, but maybe there was some lack of physicality at times. Now that's not to say there was plenty. Not, but that was something. Maybe it's first round in the championship. At times it didn't feel like a championship game, and that could have been the one-sidedness of the scores.
Yeah, well, I suppose like everything else, it's the opening weekend. It's a sort of the feeling out weekend. Where are we? Are we up to the pitch? Are we at the level? Some teams maybe have discovered that and know they can go another step. Others know that they do have to step it up, obviously, then as well. And you have to maybe factor all that in. Weather-wise, it was absolutely perfect weather. Yes, you did say maybe that there was a breeze was a factor in some of the games. It must be said, the grounds and all the grounds that was used as well, just exceptional grounds to be working on and playing off. It added maybe to the speed of the game, and that's right through all the ranks, junior, intermediate, and senior. By the way, the results or the fixtures for this weekend, it is Mullen versus Inniskeen, as you touched on there. Clune versus Latin. I know you're looking forward to that one, a repeat of that league semi-final, and we know that came down to a 1-point win for Clune on that occasion. They're coming on the back, obviously, at their intermediate success from last year. Carduff against True. Big one there, as you said. True, can they do it back to back? Carduff really need now to be getting the points on the board. And Scottstown entering the championship, a repeat of last year's final, taking on Clontarf. Is Clontarf going to show hand? You don't want to lose momentum.
Well, they haven't got any momentum yet, so that's the problem for Clontarf. Or sorry, for Scottstown, haven't got.
Yeah,
sorry, Clontarf. I was thinking about this. For me, if anyone's going to beat Scottstown, they need to beat them in a knockout. I just think, you learn so much in defeat and losing, and Scottstown have lost games before. Inniskeen beat Scottstown in an opening round of championship. Like, if you want to lose a game, lose the first one, and Scottstown wouldn't panic. Now they're at home. Clontarf have the wind in their sails. Do Clontarf want to win? Of course they want to win. I mean, no team are thinking, we can get away with losing to Scottstown, and there's other games to come. You can get caught. You're going out to win every game. There's no doubt about it. You just don't have that facility to say, no, we'll be grand. We'll put chances. Now, I was speaking to Desi after the game, and I asked him, how are your fixtures? When's your bye game? And they're not. Remember last year, they flew through the group stages, qualified for the semi-final, and then had to wait 5 or 6 weeks to play that semi-final, which was a bit of a disaster. And it's the only really, for me, that is the only issue I have. And speaking to players and that, they're not, that is the one bugbear where it can really count against you, where you're flying and then you just lose all momentum because you're sitting around waiting. And it's hard to get challenge matches in that at that stage as well. So they'll go all out to win it, no doubt about it. Just one thing on the Clontarf thing, I want to say, I think it was number 20, Dara Hughes went off with a nasty enough injury, and that'll be, hopefully he'll be back, because he had a brilliant game. I'm not sure, but he did have to go off injured, so he was exceptional, and he's a good man to hit a long distance point as well. But look, Scottstown have watched all these games. They'll be ready to go. They won't be panicked or anything like that. And you'd have to say, look, Scottstown are favourites to win that one. They're at home. They're county champions. But Clontarf have a game under their belt and will be very full of confidence and won't fear it one bit, not one bit. But I just think will Scotland be bet twice in the 1 year? It's hard to know. But if any team's going to beat them, probably Clontarf,
It could be. Well, they'll be hoping so anyway. And just, what happened Clontarf last year, you said they topped their group. Their bye was on the final round, the 5th round. But because they've qualified for the semi-final, they had to wait then. There was a weekend off. Then they had to wait for the quarterfinals to be played before they got to their semi-final. And that's where you said that big window nearly came in. I suppose it might not always happen every year, but it certainly happened for them last year. That's how that one then came about for them. Intermediate and junior, just very briefly, I don't know if you had an eye on them. We said intermediate was going to be tight. One of the groups had 2 draws, amazingly. Clonus drawn against Techholland and Blaney drawn against Killarney. So already you're looking at what or who could possibly come out of that one. And then on the other side, I know it was Carrickmacross at a comfortable win over Tone. So they had in their encounter, and the second fixture in that group now, which completely escapes me, and I'll think of it maybe in a second or so, was Dunamine with a win over to Hamlet. But again, all the makings, intermediates, going to come down to the wire, particularly that group where you've already had 2 draws.
Yeah, well, speaking to Rory Woods about, Dunamine were flying with Davy Garland and Liam McDonald were absolutely flying against Hamlet. Hamlet actually great score, a couple of great scores themselves, but Dunamine probably wouldn't be happy with their campaign so far in the league. It wouldn't really have been shooting the lights up, but you could just make a run in the championship, come under the radar. Carrick accounted for Tome. Tome, are struggling at the intermediate. They'll tell you that themselves. It's not been easy. Carrick, no better team like Carrick wants to get on top of you there. They can really put you down, But Blaney and Killarney seem to be always playing each other too. And Killarney, tough team, Killarney, and Blaney going well. So look, Carrick are in the driving seat for me at the minute. But a lot of football we played before, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's Techholland against Blaney, and then Monaghan Harps are coming into it this weekend, obviously taking on Clonus. The other side of that draw, it's Drumhowen. It's taking on Carrickmacross and Drumhowen coming into it. And it is Tone then up against Hamlet, I think it is actually. Oh, no, Dunamine, that's who it is. That Tone are playing this weekend as well. So plenty on that one. And then just briefly in the junior then as well, just to note, there was wins for O'Curry, Éire Óg, Curran and Scottstown over Killeven, Curran over Sean's a big win for them there, and what effectively would be a local derby. Éire Óg over Arbog, lots of derbies in this one, and then over O'Curry then getting their second win only of the year, and interesting enough, getting it over Oram again as well. So the junior championship slightly different in that obviously there's no relegation, so nearly a win in the opening round is a massive step to getting you into the knockout stages.
Yeah, it was a big win for Curran now, a 1-point win over Sean's, and club is doing great work. They won the under-14 Division 2 league as well. Like, they're doing massive work. I was actually down there at the weekend. We were playing an under-14 game. I was talking to Kieran Kearns, the chairman down there. Great club, so working hard there. That was good for them. O'Curry, your own outfit there, you were probably shouting them on. They did a good win, but I mean, junior is actually junior and intermediate football in Monaghan, very, very strong. Always give a good account of themselves, whoever gets out of the county. So dog eat dog out there. Éire Óg will be thereabouts. Bog Hardy as well. Look, that's a tough one. Emmyvale, we spoke about in the last pod.
Yeah, they're entering it this weekend, actually. Yeah, they're the bye. Yeah.
They're the team. Look, they're the team you're looking at, and we'll see what to do. But, they're favourites on paper, but they have to go and do it. And I think they will. I think they're the team to beat. We said that. But that's great news to every other team when you say there's only, it's a dangerous game when everyone's saying you're going to win.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, by the way, Emmyvale taking on Scottstown. It's going to be Black Hill against Rock. It's Oram up against Éire Óg, and it's Killeven taking on Sean. So a couple of nice, tasty local derbies there again. And as we noted at the start, the first weekend's over, done and dusted. We've all got a feel, we've all got a vibe for it. The teams would be similar. Training this week would be maybe a bit of recovery, tactically looking at what went wrong, what went right, and preparing then for the round of games this weekend again. And it's too early to be saying it's the moving weekend, but it's certainly a weekend that if you lost, round one. You don't want to be going out and getting another loss now.
Well, the teams who lost last week, if they lose again, like it's a big problem. There's no doubt about that, and that is going to be hammered into all week. That is, there's going to be it'll be no joking or laughing about this. Like that'll be serious. So that you just can't afford to lose two in a row. I mean, it just puts you at the pin of your collar. You're not out of it, but you're losing momentum. You're down, and no easy games in this senior championship. Definitely not. It's so competitive. Like so. And teams coming in good form. That's the other thing. Teams really getting their act together. Latin, Maracloon, Clontarrett, True, all flying. Inniskeen in a good shape. Carduff are no bad team overnight. So like you can't be. This is going to be a better weekend. This is going to be a better weekend than last weekend, in my opinion.
Well, we'll hold you to that one now. You're being held to a lot whenever you speak.
Yeah, well, you'll notice I didn't make any predictions this weekend.
Well, I was just going to fuck you now. You're not a man on the fence. You're afraid of the splinters. So quickly, where are we going? What are you going for?
Okay. I think Inniskeen will have a very narrow victory over Mullen. I think. Well, this is going to be type animal or home advantage. You can't underestimate it, but Inniskeen maybe it's hard to know how good the war against Ballabay. Ballabay didn't have a good day. Maracloon Latin. I think Latin have a real. Talking to David Lennon after the game, he's got a real. My battery's about to. I hope this battery dies before I get to finish these predictions. David Lennon spoke about how Latin beat them in the senior league and he beat them in the junior championship and beat them. He even mentioned the ladies being beaten. He was pulling it all in, as motivation. And I think it will be a motivation for them. And I think having Aaron Mulligan back will be a big thing for Latin. Dylan Byrne is back from America. I don't know if he's eligible to play. I don't think he's going to be eligible to play for this one. Look, I'm not going to go against my home club, and they're at home. They're chopping at the bit. Damien Feeney and Eamon Hughes and co have really got something special going there with that group. A great togetherness, as have Latin. It won't be it'll be as tight as you can get it. It's going to go down to the wire, and both sides will just die with their boots on. It's going to go with a narrow Maracloon win because they're at home. And I wouldn't be able to go down to Justin's shop there if I didn't say they'd win. So
didn't go in.
Yeah. And who else we got? Scottstown,
Clontarrett. Yeah, I'll go that one first. Maybe.
Scottstown at home, first game of the championship. I think they're vulnerable. I think Clontarrett will go very close. I think that one go down to the wire. I think just about home advantage might swing it for Scottstown. Just about. And the reason I'm saying is Scottstown are home and they're county champions, but I'm telling you that is going to go really close. And don't be surprised if Clontarrett do beat them, but I'm going to go with the home side. And then the last one is True Carduff. Tip Carduff, very disappointed with Carduff. Carduff will be disappointed with themselves. It was just weren't at it. They were blowing away an array of scores. They're probably not scoring enough. They're not scoring enough. They don't have enough,
There you go. The joys of the modern world. Fergal's battery, he did highlight to us the possibility that the battery might die, and it done that, and he left us hanging on in regards to who he thought might be the winner between Carduff and True. I think he hinted at it in the earlier part of our discussion there that he just thinks Carduff might edge it. There's going to be a bigger want with them, obviously. They'll not want a second defeat. They have home advantage as well. But, True, they're coming up the road. They're travelling after that win over Cromartin. But I get the feeling and the vibe from him that is possibly Carduff he would have been siding with there. That's it. Another episode. It goes to show when we record these. We record them as one take. And hopefully Fergal will get more power back on that battery indeed as well for himself. For the next time that we check in with them. Those round two games will be brought to you live on Northern Sound over the course of the weekend. And as I noted earlier on, all match reports and reaction is available on our website at northernsound.ie. I should also remind you that the hurling championship in Monaghan gets underway with the quarterfinals knockout stages during the course of this week. And we will be following up on those once those quarterfinals have been complete and we have a sort of shape to that championship in regards to who will be heading to senior semi-finals and who will be participating in the junior competitions. We will, of course, be taking a preview of them with our hurling pundit as well. So we're looking forward to that. Again, thanks to Fergal, who's gone off, no doubt, to charge that phone. That's another Monaghan Way episode. This episode 13. Don't forget, you can check them out as always on our YouTube channel at Shannonside Northern Sound. And of course, on any of the platforms, Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else that you pick up on your podcasts.